Welcome everybody. My name is Adani Sanchez. I'm with the Champaign County Young Democrats. I want to thank you all so much for being here. This is absolutely amazing. This is great. So thank you so much. I just wanted to kind of give everyone a rundown of what is going to go down today. We're about to start asking the panelists questions. They're going to hopefully share, and we're going to explore about their experiences running for office and being in political office. At the very end, we're going to have a section for question and answer. So if you have questions, write them down, think about it, and then save those for the end, please. Thank you. There are bathrooms and water fountains right around the corner if you go out to your right. And then, yeah, please be sure to take care of your child. Oh, yes. Sorry, I'm really nervous now. I did want to do a quick shout out to some of the local women running in 2018. Darlene Kleppel is running for Champaign County Executive. Ramona Sullivan running for Circuit Judge. Betsy Bergson Londrigan is running for U.S. Congress in the 13th District. Cindy Cunningham is running for the 104th District in the Illinois House. And our very own Patricia Avery is running as Lieutenant Governor of Illinois. I was also hoping that, I know that there are a lot of actually women elected officials in here right now, so if all of you could also stand up and be recognized for all of your amazing work here. And on a more serious note, I did want to say something from the Young Dems family and kind of bring everyone's attention to the horrific events in Charlottesville, Virginia. Please join us in expressing our sympathy and horror at the the horrible events of the past days. We would like to be clear on how necessary it is for everyone to condemn and reject Nazis, the KKK, white supremacists in all forms, whatever that looks like. So please join us in a moment of silence to remember Heather Heyer and many others, the other people who have been fighting and have lost their lives due to their work in social justice. So if we can please have a moment of silence, and I will give it off to Elizabeth.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Adani, and thank you everyone for being here. Welcome to the first annual Women in Politics. First we march, now we run panel, brought to you by the Champaign County Young Democrats. The remarkable women you will hear from today have run for office and won. All of them have served in the public eye and received scrutiny and faced opposition in many aspects as an elected official. Right now, women make up 20% of Congress and nearly 25% of state legislature. Women across the country have shown an increased interest in running for office since 2016, and the Champaign County Young Democrats hope to encourage more women to run by elevating the stories of these local politicians. Today, we will hear from each of our panelists about what it takes to run for office, what they attribute to their success, and they're going to offer us words of wisdom to any female looking to run for office in the future. Welcome to the panelists. Among our wonderful panelists, we have State Representative Carol Ammons. Representative Ammons is a member of the Illinois House of Representatives, representing the 103rd District since January of 2015. She is the first African-American woman to serve in that seat, and the first from Champaign County to be elected beyond the county board level. She served 5 years in the Champaign County Board, and prior to that, the Urbana City Council. Again, welcome Representative Ammons. Next we have State's Attorney Julia Rietz. Julia Rietz has served as the Champaign County State's Attorney since 2004 and is currently serving her 4th term in office. Julia is the most electable Democratic county official in Champaign County's history. She won by larger margins than other Democrats she has shared the ballot with, such as Dick Durbin, Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama. A 1993 graduate of the University of Illinois College of Law, she began her legal career as a prosecutor in the state's attorney's office. From 1999 through 2004, Julia was in private practice as a partner at Beckett and Weber in Urbana. Welcome, State's Attorney Julia Rietz. Next up, we have former State Representative Naomi Jakobsson. Representative Jakobsson was elected to represent the 103rd District in 2002. Ms. Jakobsson chaired the House Human Services Committee. She served as Champaign County Recorder for 12 years, Interim Director of Domestic Violence Shelter, and the Executive Director of the University YWCA. In 2013, when legislation she had co-sponsored to legalize same-sex marriage came up for a vote, Representative Jakobsson rushed from her son's bedside in hospice to the state capitol to vote on the measure. With her support, the bill was approved with 61 votes in favor, only one more than the minimum needed in order to pass. Thank you, Representative Jakobsson. And last but definitely not least, President of the Champaign County chapter of the NAACP and former County Board Chair, Patricia Avery. Patricia Avery began her work in the office of the County Auditor and County Recorder. In December of 2000, she became the first woman, the first African American, and the first Democrat to chair the Champaign County Board. Ms. Avery has served as the Executive Director of the Champaign County Area Project since 2004. And as you may have heard this past week, Democratic candidate for Governor Tio Hardiman has selected Ms. Avery as his running mate for Lieutenant Governor. Welcome. At the end of our question and answer period, we encourage right about 3:45, we will open the floor for questions from our guests. But right now, welcome ladies. I know our audience is anxious to hear about your political experience. Let's start left to right, and then I'll mix up the order. First, Representative Ammons, when and why did you first consider running for office?
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
First, the events of the last couple of days have been in my fabric since I was a girl. And at 13, I knew at that time that I would run for office and serve. And the primary reason for that was to really understand how public policy interacts with race and poverty in our community. I grew up in a poor community with a working class mother who, raising 3 children, I didn't understand the struggle until I was a little bit older, that a lot of what was happening to my mother and to me and to my siblings was as a result of public policy. And I committed myself after watching one of my favorite shows, and people probably know what it is. It was Schoolhouse Rock. That show really said, oh, well, you don't like that, you can change it. You don't think that's fair, you can write something better. You can contribute to your community by bringing better policy. And from that point to today, I truly believe that. I believe that what you experience in the work of all of these ladies is the result of people saying that is not fair, that's not right, and we can actually change it. We need more women in government to do that.
Thank you, Representative Ammons. And State's Attorney Julia Rietz, would you like to answer how you considered running for office?
So when I came here to Champaign-Urbana for law school, I did not in a million years think that I would end up being the state's attorney or be sitting in front of this beautiful room full of all of you amazing people, and I'm totally overwhelmed by how many people there are here. So I'm going to just give you all an applause for being here on this beautiful day. But when I came here for law school, I thought for sure I was going to go to Chicago and be a lawyer in some big fancy law firm doing whatever they do in big fancy law firms in Chicago. But the economy then in the early 90s wasn't so great, and my grades were in the middle, and so the big fancy law firms were not saying, come to us. And so I had to do some different things, and I ended up doing an internship in the state's attorney's office my third year of law school, and I fell in love with being a prosecutor and with doing justice, and with having the responsibility of making the decision and standing by the decision that ended up affecting so many different individuals, the community as a whole, and our legal system. It really spoke to me, and so I ended up staying here. And during the course of my time as a young prosecutor, my boss changed, frankly. My boss, who was Tom DeFanis, became a judge, and we got a new boss. And the new boss and I didn't get along very well, philosophically. He was very political, and he had his path that he wanted to go on. And so decisions that he made, frankly, were made based on what I felt were his political interests and desires. And so I left the office and went ultimately into private practice with Steve Beckett, who was and is one of my mentors, and kind of saw things from the other side, not as a prosecutor, but as a defense attorney representing individuals who ended up in the criminal justice system and didn't have that power. So it was a great opportunity to kind of see the other side. And got involved with a lot of these wonderful ladies and people out in the audience who have been involved in the Democratic Party in Champaign County for so many years. And when the time came, I took the opportunity to run against my boss. And so, and here I am, and he lives in Texas now. So there were personal reasons, but also really having this amazing support, again, of so many of the people who are smiling at me in the back of the room, and frankly of one wonderful woman who's not with us anymore, Jerry Parr, who was the chair of the Champaign County Democratic Party for so many years, and learning from her really is what put me on this amazing path. And so I'm so grateful to be sitting with these wonderful people and seeing all of the support and the interest from everyone in this community for the future.
Thank you, State's Attorney Rietz. I'd like to ask the same question of you, Representative Jakobsson. When and why did you first consider running for office?
Thank you. Okay. Not used to this kind of circle. Yes, I ran for county recorder in 1984. So a lot of you in this room weren't even around then. But in 1984, I had already volunteered on many, many campaigns and did a lot of different things. I knocked on doors for people. I held coffees and teas. I baked. I hosted. I even made speeches sometimes if the candidate couldn't be there in one particular race. And so in 1984, somehow or other, I looked at the list of countywide candidates and realized there was going to be an open seat for the county recorder. And I thought, I've done everything else. Maybe I should run for this. And I talked to a few people and went around even to other counties, talked to the recorders there, got an idea of, pretty much what the recorder does, because up until then I really didn't have a good idea. Studied the statutes, which the recorder section isn't that long, but I decided that I would go for it. And I didn't run in the primary because there was someone that the Democrats had running. And after she won the primary, she and her husband were moving out of the county. So once again, it was completely open, and the party needed to slate somebody. I went to the county chair, and she really made me jump through hoops. I mean, I think she wanted to make sure I was sincere, wanted to make sure that I had done my homework and that I would continue to do my homework. And then I was slated, and I won that first race by 0.6%. Landslide Jake. But then when I ran the third time, I'm not there now with you, but at that time I was the highest vote getter of any contested race in Champaign County. So if we're going to talk about partisan, for Democrats, you can do it. Don't let people tell you, oh, this isn't a really great place for Democrats. Because if you work hard, and you do what you're supposed to do, you can do it.
Thank you so much, Representative Jakobsson. All right, Ms. Avery is the next one on this panel. I just realized that's going to embark on a campaign of the four of you. Tell us, though, look back and tell us why and when you decided to run for the first time.
I have to look back pretty far because it started, to be quite honest, politics was the last thing that I thought I would get into. So I owe a lot of it to this lady here, but I'm one of 9 children, the third oldest in the bunch. And my dad would always say, out of all of you all, somebody needs to be in politics. And I was the first one to speak up and say it won't be me. Well, I'm the only one out of the 9 that's gotten involved in politics. But it wasn't that I just struck out to become politically involved. I think it just happened that I've always had an opinion about things, and I've always participated in our democracy. I could not wait until I turned 18 to register to vote, and I've always, and one of the requirements in my home is that when you turn 18, you will register to vote. So I worked many of the elections. That's how it started out. I just got the bug. I really enjoyed working the elections. And then when I became involved with the county government and worked with the auditors, worked with some really incredible women. I started out with Jerry Parr, and I know her name has been mentioned a couple of times, but she really did impress upon me the importance of women. I watched her. She was an incredible Democratic chairwoman, and I watched her just how she dealt with the issues and how she brought the party together. And then I went to work in Naomi Jakobsson's office, in the recorder's office. And it was just history from there. I think she made a big impression upon my work and getting into the political arena. But it wasn't always easy, and I want you to know that. As women, you are going to be confronted with obstacles and adversities and challenges. But you know what? I think that's what makes us strong. My philosophy is, if you're going uphill, that's where you get your strength. So it's always uphill for many of us women when we're running for an office, but we gain our strength from that. And the other thing that I would say is, now that I've learned and been an elected an official, that I think it was Shirley Chisholm who said, if you are not at the table, bring a folding chair. We need you to be participating in this democracy. It's even more important now than ever to have the voices of the women at least pulling up your chair and being in the room.
Wonderful answers, ladies. Next up, it takes a village in order to run a campaign. Parades, knocking on doors, every phone call that you make. Did your family and your friends encourage you to run for office, and how have they helped you get where you are? Let's start with Representative Jakobsson this time.
Well, thank you. Did my family and friends help? They sure did. And I was able to jump in right away when I ran for recorder, and then, I did go on and run for state representative, you might remember. But early on, when I ran for county recorder, that was and I think there were more of them at that time. That was a complete mom and pop operation. And, you know, we addressed envelopes and did all of those things at our dining room table or maybe at a friend's dining room table. And I do like to say it was the one time in my life during those campaigns, I ran for recorder 3 times, that Eric probably had the feeling that he, at least that time, he had a time in his life when he could manage me, because he was my campaign manager at a couple of those races. And so, yes, my family was very much with me. We had a lot of parades. When somebody is running county-wide, there are more parades than you have to do running state rep in this district. And my family was with me in practically every parade. In fact, I even remember my children were quite young when some of them were quite young when I was county recorder, and the smaller ones had t-shirts that said courthouse kid or parades, and Eric had one that said courthouse spouse. But a lot of friends had to step up and help also. But, you know, if you're doing the job right, your friends are willing to help. When they're asked and they see that you are really willing to do anything that needs to be done as well, then your friends are willing to help also. And it takes a lot of courage to do one of the things that is probably the least liked of some of us, and that's picking up the phone and asking for money. But once again, that has to be done, and you know, your friends come through. When you say, this is what I plan to do, this is why I'm doing it, whatever the office is, friends will be in there to help. So watch out, friends, when you get those phone calls.
Thank you, Representative Jakobsson. I'm going to go over to Representative Ammons next and have you answer that question about the integral part of your family and friends.
Thank you. I've run for 4 offices also. The initial offices are always the ones where you recruit all your family members, and they're the ones that say, why do we have to go out every Saturday? Why do we have to pass all those flyers? You know, my children have been my cheerleading team for a long time. I'm just going to say, as an African American woman, it is not exactly equivalent for Julia Rietz and I. Because when I decided, a friend of mine actually called me and asked me to run for state rep. And I said to her, are you crazy? And she said, no, I think you would be a great state rep. I think you would be a great state rep. And she called me a few times. And we had a family meeting here in Chicago. And my Chicago family in particular, I have an uncle who's a lobbyist. And he said, Carol, you're not going to be able to raise the money. You know how much money it costs to run for state rep? He also said, well, you're not going to be chosen by Madigan. So how are you going to deal with the Madigan machine? That's what he said. He actually tried to dissuade me from running. And I looked at him and I said, you don't know Champaign-Urbana like I do. And I said, I believe that my work will speak for itself. And so for anyone in the room who believes that the mountain is too high to climb, I am a testament to the climbing of a mountain. Because what I was recording in my mind as the newspaper put out, the knowledgeable Democrats were all opposed to Carol Ammons. She won't be a good rep. She doesn't know. All of the things that now we're confronted with, we need to face the reality that there is space for people who are different. There's space for people who may not be in the status quo or the mainstream. There's space. And if we don't begin to tell the story that there is space, then there is no difference in the thinking of the individuals that go. And I'll just say this in closing, that I have for years believed that I was a student of history. I believe it. And every time we get to the point, I always read history to give me a little guidance as to where I should be. I study that first before I make a decision on any policy issue. I read history first because it is the best teacher for us. And as a person who ran in a very difficult primary and general, I learned the lessons of history, that the voices of the people cannot be muffled even if the power is opposed to it. And today, if there's no other reason why we should be pushing forward, it is because the voices of the people cannot be silenced, even when the power structure of those who think they are the power structure say so. And so I am committed 1,000% to diversity, to inclusion, to opportunity for every single person who wants it.
And I hope you are back in we're going to get to you in a second, Julia, but first I'd like to hear from Ms. Avery about that. Family and friends and their involvement and how you got to where you are.
Well, I don't think that we could run any campaign without the involvement of our family and friends. They are our #1 cheerleaders, they are our #1 fans, and so they're actually going to be out there encouraging you. When you get discouraged, and sometimes you do, oftentimes you do when you're running a campaign, get discouraged, you have to have somewhere to go to get that encouragement and that motivation to keep going on. And sometimes it is your family that can give you that boost that you need. Even though you have your friends that are supporters out there that are with you, they're not there behind the closed doors when you've just had to deal with an adverse situation. And Carol reminded me that when I was being talked about becoming the chair of the county board, that it became quite challenging in adversity. I had just someone within our own ranks to sit across from me and say, Champaign County is not ready for a face like yours. There will be too many blacks in control. And we were only 4 on the county board. And so I was appreciative that the honesty was being shared with me. I really appreciate that, because I'd rather know where you're coming from, then I'm better equipped to deal with it. But you know what? After dealing with that adversity, I said I respectfully disagree that you feel that, and I'm sorry you feel that way. But the same individual thought I was good enough to serve as the vice chair of the board. And so my friends were, if you're good enough to serve as the vice chair, certainly you could be good enough to serve as the chair. And that was kind of the encouragement and motivation I needed at a low point as I was thinking about whether I should accept that position or not. So it is your family and friends that get you through a lot of the difficult times. When this is no game. It's no cakewalk when you put yourself out there to run as a position and for an elected office. It's no cakewalk, but you know what? Our democracy is under siege, and we must do it. We cannot sit as spectators on the sidelines and looking at what's going on in the last couple of days. It's a participatory democracy. So we must participate, and that's where we get our strength from our families and our friends.
Thank you, Ms. Avery. And as I look out at your daughter, State's Attorney Rietz, can you tell us the many parades and your family and friends and how they've gotten you where you are?
How many parades, Alice? Well, that would be one a year. So 13 parade years. We are experts at parades. So the question was family and friends. And I think at the local level, all campaigns start out at your kitchen table, or your dining room table, and mine certainly did. And in 2002, when I made this decision at my dining room table, I was running against an established Republican in what was at that time a very Republican-leaning county. Only at that point had the county board turned Democratic because of a lot of work of a lot of the people, again, in this room and in history. But I was the underdog, absolutely. And at my dining room table, people who were supportive of me, and interestingly, Steve Beckett and Bob Kirshner, and anyone who knows those two, think of Steve Beckett and Bob Kirshner sitting at my dining room table, working together to tell me that I should run. It was a very different time. They ultimately didn't get along after that, and I'm not going to tell that whole story. But the point is that I started out at my dining room table with friends and with family helping me. And it's friends and family who you have to recruit to walk in parades with you. And many of those people are here sitting in the room. Janet's smiling at me because you've done a lot of parades with me. And you have to get out there and ask people to do these things for you. And it's hard because we as women want to do everything for ourselves, right? We can take care of it. Well, you have to get out there and you have to ask. You have to say, can you do this for me? Can you do this with me? And you have to ask it over and over again. It's not like on television when you see in one of those sitcoms somebody's running for office and there's miraculously an office with miraculously a bunch of people buzzing around doing stuff. That's not the way it works really at a local level. You have to make that happen. So you've got to get your friends involved, and you have to get over the feeling that it's hard to ask a friend to do something for you, because they will. And then you have to keep asking them, because asking them to do 14 parades over 14 years, they get a little tired of it, frankly. But you have to ask. And so, if there's anything that you take away from this, it's that you have to get over the fear of asking people to help you, because you cannot do this all by yourself. So in my family, I've got my amazing daughter who's been next to me for so many years on this path. And there are times where I vividly remember being at Westside Park at a community event, and she was done. I think you were like 9 or something, maybe 8, and you were just tired. And I was saying, please stop getting upset. Mommy's running for office. Sorry, it just doesn't, probably don't remember that, but I do. But so, you have to involve your family, but you also have to respect their limits. And you have to take care of them while you're taking care of yourself and while you're taking care of your campaign and all of those things. But I could not have done this without my family. My mother has come down and walked in parades. She's the one going, vote for my daughter. People love that stuff. You got to do that. My husband has become an absolute expert in pounding fence posts, for big signs. We drive around the county the night before every election night, putting signs out. This has become part of the fabric of our family life. But again, you have to get over the fear of asking for help, because you cannot do this by yourself.
Thank you, State's Attorney Rietz. And we're going to go this way to this way for the next question. And some of you have already touched on this next question. There is adversity when you are a female in politics. And I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask for specific times unless you can think of them. But how would you say life and politics has been harder because you're a woman? Let's start with you, Ms. Avery.
Well, as you know, when I became the chair of the county board, I was the first woman. And so I believe they thought hell would freeze over. They were really not ready for a woman. I mean, besides, if you look at the history of the county, it was older white men who ran the county board. And really, to be quite honest, the rural community, that was their form of government. Even though there was districts, many folks in the urban and cities, they just didn't look to the county as their form of government. So it was almost like looking at me as if this was going to be a hostile takeover. This cannot happen. Having a woman run the county board? Are you kidding me? But I felt like the county, because I spent so much time in the county, I started working with the county in 1986. So many of those people knew me. I felt like it was being ran somewhat like a mom and pop operation, and I might have been one of the step kids because they knew me, they've seen me around the county for a while, but running the county board, and I'm sure that there were some Republicans talking to some Democrats, what are you thinking? Really? But hell didn't freeze over, and I think that we made it through the adversity, as I was speaking earlier about one of my colleagues saying that I was not the face that this county was ready for, and I respectfully disagreed. And as it turned out, my colleague was the one that went on and nominated me at the organizational meeting to be the chair of the board. So it all came back. It all turned out okay. So I don't want you to leave it out there that that individual didn't come around. As a matter of fact, he was very, very loyal as we had our administration and we went on to do some good things. So you are going to be faced with adversity, but you just have to stare it down. You know, don't be afraid of it. You know, I have this thing, you armor up as women. You know, you have to, because people view you as being soft, and we may have a different approach to how we want to address issues, but we care about them just as deeply and just as strongly as any man does, but we may go about getting resolution in a different way. And I think we always go about it in a more gentler, kinder way, and I think that's where we get more things done that way.
Thank you, Ms. Avery. Representative Jakobsson, would you like to answer the same question about adversity as a woman?
When I took office in 1984, things were even tougher for women in public life then, I believe, than they are now. There was more acceptable behavior that would be termed sexual harassment, that was almost a given of the way men were able to interact with women in an office. I mean, I had worked in an office, you know, many, many years before that and experienced some of this, but when some of the older attorneys came in to use the recorder's office, and they greeted me in a way that, you know, they wouldn't have greeted a man. It wasn't just even an arm on the shoulder, but it was to try to get around as much as they could. And men felt that they really had the privilege and the right to touch women in an office. And so that was one thing. I didn't have men on the staff. I inherited the staff from my predecessor, who was a man. So even though they were women, my staff weren't sure about having a woman boss. So that was another part. But getting back to the issue of sexual harassment, there was one man who used to come in to use, for his job, he came into the recorder's office on a very regular basis. People who work for title companies and different companies like that, I think they do it online more now, but you might even remember this gentleman. I mean, he always had some off-color story to tell. And he loved to tell these stories to the women. And I finally had to pull him aside one day because the stories were getting more and more inappropriate. And I had to pull them aside and say, you know, if you're going to come in here and use this office, that can't go on. And that wasn't an easy thing for me to do, but I also knew that it was the right thing to do. And I'm not sure if my predecessor, well, I don't know if he ever even noticed that kind of thing went on, or if it didn't go on when he was in there, I don't know. But those were some of the kinds of issues. That was a really tough kind of issue that I faced as being the woman in charge of that office. The other thing was that, I remember, young folks, my very first campaign for county recorder, my bumper strip not only had my name for recorder, but it had a logo on it. And the logo was a computer terminal. Because I said I would computerize the office. I know, you're laughing out there because you can't imagine an office not having computers. There were none in the county recorder's office. And my staff was skeptical because they were used to getting out those big old books. Remember watching old movies when men had visors on and their sleeves were rolled up with garters and they were writing in these big ledgers? Well, that was kind of what the recorder's office looked like. The women didn't have garters on their sleeves, but that was the equipment. And so people were hesitant, and I think they were hesitant again because here was a woman who was talking about some technology that mostly was a man's world, and especially in 1984. And then I did succeed in computerizing the office. And in fact, the Champaign County Recorder's Office was one of the first in the state to start computerizing so much that they put the records in and had images of them. So people were hesitant. And you know, I had to almost hold the hands of people who came in to use the office and say, it's really easy, let me show you how to use this computer. You'll be able to do it tomorrow on your own. But again, I think it was because I was a woman that I had some of the feedback that I was getting. No, I don't think this should be done, that's not going to be good, you're going to lose a lot of information. I'm sure there were other challenges, but you want to hear from other people.
Thank you, Representative Jakobsson. Before State's Attorney Rietz answers this question, for this panel, when I asked her, should I call you State's Attorney Rietz or Julia? She looked right at me and said, Elizabeth, would you ask that to a man? And she was absolutely right. So State's Attorney Rietz, would you like to tell me? Correct us all. How have you faced adversity as a woman?
Well, it's interesting because many times I live in a man's world. I'm in law enforcement. You know, I'm a prosecutor. I have lived in this man's world for many years. When I was first elected as state's attorney, there were 6 out of 102 elected state's attorneys in Illinois who were women. This past year in 2016, there are 16 out of 102. So we're doing better, but we're not even close to even. So I'm used to being in that man's world. I'm used to being the only woman in a lot of meetings I'm in and a lot of situations I'm in. I'm actually more used to that sometimes than being in a room full of women, frankly. Yes, absolutely. But I often find, you know, that it will go Chief, Sheriff, Julia. And I don't ever want to fall back on, well, it's because I'm a woman, because I just can't use that as an excuse for anything in my life, right? I have to say, okay, I'm going to say it's because State's Attorney Rietz is kind of an awkward title, so it doesn't flow as well as Chief, Sheriff, right? So, I mean, that's how I try to justify it. And it didn't bother me so much when I was younger, but maybe as I've gotten older, I kind of see it a little bit more as a respect for my office or my position or that sort of thing. So, So I think that in the job that I have, in the office that I have, the role that I'm in, it could be easy to look at the decisions I make through that lens, and that happens sometimes. People will say, what if this was your child? And that's a question that I don't know they would ask to a man, to a male prosecutor or to a male state's attorney. And I have to say, I can't make my decision based on as if this is my child. I have to make this decision based on my responsibilities to the law, to the facts, to the community, to the evidence, to the criminal justice process, because certainly if the decision was made based solely on the lens of that individual sitting in the middle of the room, it wouldn't be based on the right factors for this process. So, I think that's a question that, again, that gets asked to me because of my gender rather than because of my position. But I can also honestly say that only one time in politics, knocking on doors, did I knock on a door and a man opens the door and looks at me and says, "A woman state's attorney? No way, sweetie," and shut the door in my face. One time. The one time. So that's, not so bad in a lot of ways, right? But I have always found I have so many men who have been so supportive of me and of my career and of my path, and so I really don't want to sit here and kind of say like, oh, it's so hard to be a woman. It's just hard to be a person, and in this process. And so again, you've just got to gather yourself up and get out there and put yourself out there, and take the support and assistance you get from women, from men, from everyone. And get out there and do it, and not use anything as an excuse. And so, Elizabeth, you can call me Julia, you can call me Madam State's Attorney. Just don't call me late for dinner.
Thank you, State's Attorney Rietz. Next, we're going to ask the same question as Representative Ammons, and you've talked of adversity today, but tell us about some of your experience and your history as an elected official.
Man, I think we would be here forever. I'll do a plug. If you're interested in the real deep story, we have our Women Making Waves third brunch, October 7th, which will be here. So if you're interested in that, see me afterwards so I can make sure you get the information. We could go on and on about adversity. As a person running for office, it comes with the territory. So if you put yourself out there, something that Lisa Madigan said recently, which I really respect her, she said, if you don't want people to talk bad about you, don't run for office. That's the first part. So adversity absolutely comes with the job, and it can either break you or strengthen you. And so for me, I've taken it as a strength, and so as one of my older mentors has taught me is as people may throw rocks at you and you feel you're in a ditch, at some point they'll throw enough rocks that you can climb out of it. And so I am always, always encouraged by the adversity itself, by the challenge. Like so many of our male counterparts, my husband's extremely competitive. I mean in everything. It could be Monopoly, Scrabble, I'm not just talking about crazy basketball or baseball. He is extremely competitive. And some of that, I think, is good, right? Competitiveness allows you to get in, roll up your sleeves, look at adversity straight in the face, and say, guess what? I am stronger than the actual challenge. And so the stories that I have experienced are only those that have strengthened me in my resolve and made me even more committed to doing the work that I've set out to do. But I think something that has really given me clear direction is the struggles that I believe my mother took on for me, the struggles that she experienced, and I didn't think she knew anything, as most parents. Now my children look at me like, oh gosh, she don't know much of anything. But I look back since she is not here anymore, and I remember things that she said and did. And as my mother passed a year or so ago, I went through her items like many of us do. And there were letters that she had written to to U.S. Senator Carol Moseley Braun, who was one of the persons that I highly respect. And in the letters, she's a working class woman in poverty. And she wrote these letters asking, at that time, U.S. Senator Carol Moseley Braun to intervene on behalf of poor people. I never thought my mother had a political bone in her body. But she wrote these letters saying to them, it is unfair to people who have worked their entire lives, even if they didn't make a lot of money, to not have adequate health care. That was her issue, and I had no idea. And so today I take that as my strength in the face of adversity, no matter how great or big the challenge may be. I can use that. I can use her story. I see it in my mind when I'm facing the challenge that there are greater challenges that others have faced before me. And so that's what keeps me moving.
Thank you, Representative Ammons. All right, I don't believe that, did you say Madam Rietz? Was that one of the ones I'm allowed to address you as? State's Attorney Rietz, so we're going to go to you with the next one. What other women, elected officials, could be statewide or nationally, do you admire?
I'm going to take it easy now. These three. Well, of course, obviously, these three ladies. All the wonderful. You know, I'm struggling because I hate to separate it between women and men, because here in Champaign County, we have so many amazing people who have taken it upon themselves to run for office and to put themselves out there. And so it's not just a woman-man thing. This is a huge commitment. If a part of the point of this is to try to encourage people to take this on, and there are some people who have taken it on recently and have won. We've got some newly elected people in the audience. We've got some people who are considering it. Maybe some of you are just quietly thinking, I could do that in the back of your heads. So I don't want to separate it so much between men or women, because there have just been so many amazing people along the way who have been supportive. It's so easy, I think, to look at politicians, and it becomes like a dirty word. And I think that is so unfair, because the vast majority of people in political office and people in the political world that I have come across, man or woman, are doing this because because they're passionate about their community, they're passionate about their cause, and they see government as a way to help further that cause or help raise the people that they have been elected by to a greater path. And so it's not just a man-woman thing. That's why I'm struggling.
Pick an elected official. Pick one or two that you that are not on this panel or even in this room. Could be male or female.
She's putting me so much on the spot. I'm so bad at this pick somebody thing. I can say that there have just been so many people along the way. And I'm going to also say this, and I'm going to say it, I'm putting it here with a little disclaimer. Democrat and Republican, who have inspired me and helped our community along the way. I really think that's fair and important to say, even in a forum put on by the Young Democrats. Because again, I'm trying to encourage people to run for office and to do it for the right reasons and on behalf of your community and your constituents. We need people to get out there. It's hard, it can be painful. The way the world works, the way media works these days, the way social media works these days, it's very easy for people to look at all of that and just say, I don't want to be involved. I don't want to put myself out there. I don't want to have to put up that shield. I don't want to have to climb over the rocks that have gotten thrown at me, And so I'm really struggling picking somebody out, because I really want to be here encouraging people, to be the next one, to be the one that inspires me the next time around, because of the work that you all have done. So I'm gonna you know what, I made my decision, it's all of you. It is, you know, people ask me, who's my boss? You know, you all are my boss. So it's not some other elected official who has done it, who has inspired me. It's this community that I live in, and the people sitting in this room, and the, you know, people out there who bother to vote every 4 years or 2 years or every year, a lot of them. You know, that's what inspires me.
Thank you, State's Attorney Rietz. All right, Ms. Avery, I'm going to ask the same question of you. Do you have a male or female, or Republican or Democrats that you looked up to and that you admire?
Well, the Barbara Jordan would be one that I really respected. I loved her energy and her passion and the work that she did. And she was only an elected official for 12 years, but she did so much, and people still respect Barbara Jordan. So I look up to her, and right now is Auntie Maxine Waters. That is my girl. And I always look up to women who aren't afraid to say what to speak what's in their heart and what they know they feel is right. And she has stepped out against many others. I mean, she has just resisted to the end, and I'm there with her on how she feels about a lot of things. So I would say right now, Maxine Waters is right there on the top.
All right, and Representative Ammons, I know that you mentioned Carol Mosley Braun, and many of us remember she partook in a very ugly campaign, but do you have others that you've looked up to over the years or currently?
Oh, sure. The list is probably extremely long, but I'll follow the course of Madam State's Attorney. No, I respect Maxine Waters and Kamala Harris and those who are standing in the gap. I respect Nina Turner, who stood in the presidential election year where no one knew the name Bernie Sanders, but she was right there. Not only saying he's the right person, but his policies were right. But from my experience on the county board, I have to recall the name of John Jay. And many people may not know John Jay, but he was a Republican farmer, rural Champaign County. And John and I never agreed on anything. We never voted together on anything that I can remember anyway. Certainly nothing controversial, that's for sure. But one thing I do respect about John is John knew exactly where I stood, and I knew exactly where he stood. He was clear and transparent, and he was always respectful, no matter what the issue was. And today, if I were to call a colleague in the House, I would call my friend across the aisle, Steve Anderson, he came in the General Assembly with me. He's a Republican. And the most difficult time in the history of Illinois under this governor, Steve Anderson was the floor leader who led, I believe, the charge to get Republicans to stop this budget impasse, the historic crises. And he was maligned and viciously attacked by those who are supposed to be on his side because he did the right thing. He helped us stop the budget impasse. And he was punished for it by the powers that be. But that's what it takes. It takes that kind of leadership in historic crises. I could go on and on about the, I believe, heroic leadership of so many. But I'm recalling the day that Naomi went to the General Assembly and cast that vote on same-sex marriage. And I had my own moment this year. My grandmother passed during the budget impasse. And it was the day of the override. And I had to go to Springfield, cast that vote, and drive to her funeral.
We still have to hear from Representative Jakobsson on women you admire.
You know, I know I talked about some things that were history to a lot of you that weren't alive, so I'm going to mention some women that I didn't know, okay? I'm really talking about history. I don't go back that far. I think the women who put themselves out there to work for women's suffrage, we all owe a whole lot to, and I really admire those women. So I think they really set the course for a lot of us.
Thank you, Representative. And we are going to take questions from the floor, but in 30 to 45 seconds, can each of you ladies, starting with Ms. Avery, tell everyone out there, what would you like to say to someone who is considered running for office?
Do it.
All right, thank you, Ms. Avery. Representative Jakobsson, what would you like to say?
I would encourage them to do it. I'd ask them to make sure they know what they're, running for, make sure they know their platform, what it is they want to do, but go for it.
Thank you so much for that, Representative Jakobsson. Madam Rietz, what would you like to say to somebody? I'm scared to address you. State Representative. Look at that, I gave you a new title. What would you like to say to anybody that is considered a run for office?
Okay, so the do it is absolutely, of course, but also be prepared to put on so many different hats. When I came in and I picked up this brochure, I said, oh my God, this is a great brochure. It's in color, there's not very many words, it's got bullet points. You know how many different jobs you have to take on when you run for office? You're not just the candidate running for the position that you want to have. You also become a marketing executive. You have to become a social media guru. You have to become a party planner. You have to become a marathon runner, because you got to walk and walk and walk and walk. You have to become a TV personality. You have to become absolutely a student of all of the various issues that are facing your office and every other office, because you have no idea what somebody's going to ask you when you knock on their door, and it might have something completely unrelated to what you're going to do, but they still want your opinion, and if you don't give it, they're not going to be satisfied with you with the answer, well, that doesn't have anything to do with my job. So you have to wear so many different hats and be prepared for that. And particularly, again, I don't know if we're going to talk about kind of the practical realities of running for office, but in today's media, in today's world of social media, so many things to consider when you're making that leap into being a candidate. I know I talked to Ramona Sullivan, who said, the News Gazette reported that I'm running for office. Yay, Ramona, she's running for office. And but I don't have my Facebook page, and I don't have my website. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. But these are all practical realities of running for office that, in addition to just the I want to do this, you have to then be prepared to actually do.
Thank you, State's Attorney Rietz. All right, we're going to finish it up with before we open the floor for questions. Representative Ammons.
So I will agree with all that they've already said. I would just say if you're considering running, just remember that you're human. You may make a few mistakes and you may actually have a bad day, right? But you're still entitled to be human.
All great advice. Now we would like to open the floor. If you have a question, you can raise your hand. I'm going to come out with the microphone so that the panelists can make sure they hear you.
Hi. First of all, I wanted to say thank you for this lovely event. The stories that you told here have been inspiring. They fed me. I don't know about everybody else, but it's been a really difficult 48 hours for everybody, I think, yeah? Yeah. Helpful tears, healing tears are what we need right now, and thank you for giving those to us. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about that I haven't really heard much about is the role of digital media and storytelling. There's an organization called Run for Something. Has anybody heard of it? Run for Something. Look it up. They started right after the election, and their goal is to connect people, like people sitting in this room, to the resources that they need. These are experienced campaign workers that will vet and say, okay, no, you seem like you're serious about this. Here, let's connect you to people who've done this before. Let's give you the people who understand how this digital media works. Tell your stories. The empathetic power of your stories will connect to voters. Tell them why you're running. Use the social media that's out there. I moderate for a very large group online called Pantsuit Nation. And yes, so some people are nodding here, we know what this is. The people who have come to us with stories about running for select person, small offices, generate tens of thousands of comments, generate huge amounts of fundraising, because people click on your profile and they say, oh, I'd like to support them. So I want to see this millennial surge of younger people getting involved. They connect through digital media. And I want everybody to think about ways that this can be used, because comments in the newspaper section, they matter so much. So I don't know that I necessarily have a question, but I'd love to see that sort of thing kind of going through.
I just want to say thank you for that advice.
And I completely agree with that. And over the 4 times that I've run, the world has changed as far as communication. In this past election in 2016, the role of social media was so much more significant than any other way to get your message out. And I found it to be really important and a complete change of mindset. And so I think, again, if you're thinking of running, you need to consult somebody who knows that world and get them involved in helping you.
I think another way that you have to remember about media is that as a candidate, the media is always going to be ready to ask you a question or expect an answer, and you have to do your best to be prepared. I mean, sure, you might be caught off guard someday, you might have a bad day, you just got up, but whatever the way is that they reach you now, you do need to be ready to respond.
And don't read the comments.
So a question for all 4 of you. You all spoke about the criticism that you face as women, as African American women, as just human beings in the public eye. But you're all also, as elected officials, responsive in some way to the public, to the people who put you in office. So how do you tell the rocks that you got to climb over to get out of the ditch from the rocks that are telling you, no, you need to shift a little this way or that way, or do things differently?
I'll say that, I believe that I'm extremely accessible. So a lot of people call me on my cell phone, they interact with my staff, they walk into my office, we just show up at community events. But when people are making comments, as I don't read the comment section either, I like to engage with people directly. So a gentleman calls me on the phone, he doesn't live in my district, but he calls me frequently, and he wants to talk about a particular issue. I'll call him back, and if he's not kind to my staff, for instance, I'll address him about that first. And then I'll say to him, why don't we have tea? We might not agree at the end of the tea, but I want to hear what he's saying, because he may provide something that I've missed in the policy area, even though he's not my constituent. I think it's important that people try to really listen hard, look up the information, do your own investigation of it, and then make a determination. And so I do that process all of the time.
State's attorney.
Could you just call me Julia?
Julia,
Could you answer this question? Because I've known you forever.
Yeah. So, okay, would you like to answer that question?
So that is hard, because I'm trying to walk the line of, you're my boss, right? But that doesn't mean that everybody's always going to agree with everything that I do, every decision that we make. And that, I can't hold my finger up in the air and try to figure out which way the wind's blowing, because we'll spin in circles. And so ultimately, you've got to find the voice of the people that you respect, those who, whose advice you respect, but also you have to look yourself in the mirror when you're making these decisions. One of my mentors was a state's attorney in Peoria, Kevin Lyons, who was a Democrat and a state's attorney for many years in Peoria, a very conservative area. And he would say, basically, you've got to make the decisions that you believe are right under the law, based on the facts, based on the evidence, and then stand up and explain it to people. And if they don't vote for you because they don't like the decisions that you're making, then you don't want to be their state's attorney. I can't try to figure out what to do that's going to make every person in this room happy. I'm not going to do it. You can't try to figure out what's going to make everyone happy. None of us can. But we have to take that responsibility and then put it in front of you all.
I think if we really feel grounded in why we're running for office and with ourselves, with our personal beliefs and maybe what we put out there in the first place as to what we believe and that's why we're running, we have to make sure we really believe those things and that they are us. Not just because, oh, I heard that and that sounds pretty good. But, and then when that phone starts to ring with some opposition on a position that, you're taking, and in the case of, which could happen to all of us, first of all, my staff who answered the phone a lot of the times was a woman. I see I have this girl again. Now, how does that start off? Is she in? Never a name, never a title, but we could tell right off that there was some disagreement going on. And depending on how that person was on the phone, if he or she, usually it was a man that was taking that attitude, started swearing at my legislative assistant, she had my permission to say thank you and goodbye. So I think there are times, now that's a pretty clear, obvious, that was a mud, that wasn't even a rock. But I think there are times when it's pretty clear, but it's really important to know yourself and know what grounds you.
Thank you, Representative Jakobsson. Ms. Avery, you get the final word on this question.
Okay, so I think that it's important to stay true to who you are and your values and your principles. And I found that when we disagree on issues, I think that it's important that we always stay respectful of others' opinions and views. We can respectfully disagree on a number of issues as long as we remain respectful in that. And just the other day when I announced that I was running for Lieutenant Governor, I went into the park and I ran into a Republican colleague. Well, he was a Republican. He knew me. He said, Miss Avery, I've watched you over these years, and we really disagreed on a lot of the conversation that we were having, but he said, I've always respected you because I've heard you talk in different venues, at council meetings, at school board meetings. And why aren't you running for governor? No, he did say that, but we disagreed a lot, but what we did do, through all of that conversation, we found a common thread. And I think that if we can continue to listen to each other and talk to each other, that we can find a common thread that we can agree on. And so I'm hoping, that would be my approach to when people start to throw stones. I try to look for something that we have in common so that we can at least move past and be civil to it. We can walk away feeling pretty good. And I walked away from today feeling pretty good. And I think I might get his vote, to be quite honest.
Thank you, Ms. Avery. We have time for one more question from the audience. I am sorry, I saw the lady magenta. I shouldn't say lady. I am now suddenly aware.
Hi, thank you for being here. My question is a little bit more personal on work and home balance. A lot of these offices, when people run their additional jobs, they're not something that they do full time, and so that takes you away from the home and regular duties that as women we often feel much more responsible for. And so I'm curious about what are some of the key changes you made in your home life to manage those adjustments, and what do you do for yourself for self-care?
You could just give the microphone to the young lady right now.
Let's start, who wants to start and answer that one? It looks like Representative Jakobsson is ready to jump in.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm glad that, you didn't quite ask the question that is often asked, a woman and not a man, is, well, who's going to be with your children? And I think we do know a lot of men in the General Assembly who bring their children with them when they can, because they are as much caregivers. And I know in our home, we were both the parents. It wasn't just one parent, even though, I'm not saying something about a single parent home, but this is often directed at where there are two parents, but it's usually directed at the woman, like, what are you going to do about your children? We are going to continue to raise the children. For me, how I balance things, my children were a little bit older when I ran for office. Yes. I have one who was out of high school, or was she a senior? She was out of high school, thank you. She went to school with his sister. But at the time, my younger ones were, I think, in 3rd grade. And when they learned, they were ready to start 4th grade, when they learned that they were going to get to go to the after-school program with all of their friends, they were really happy. And, they were used to coming home and having cookies and mom and being driven to whatever lessons they had. But they were ready for the shift and making their own changes in their schedules. And hopefully it's because we presented it to them as something positive. They were with me all through the campaign and knew that I won. And so I had other children in middle school and high school, so it wasn't like they needed me during the day at home. And because of where the recorder's office was located, and we lived in Urbana, we still do, most of them stopped on the way home from school just to check in and say hello. And so they got to know Aunt Pat and other women in the office. That was the respectful way at that time. And it depended if when they got tired of after-school program, then they came to the recorder's office and they could go across the street and buy ice cream and then come back and love chatting with the staff. So, there are different ways of balancing things, and I'm not a good example of sharing housework and things like that, because then I would go home and do all the housework and the cooking.
I'm not at the Aunt Pat status yet, so Ms. Avery, would you like to answer the same question?
Well, I think that's when I learned to become a multitasker, and with all of the things that we had to balance between our political life and our home life. But it just seemed to work out where, everybody kind of pitched in and helped out with the responsibilities, but it was always my thing, family first. So whatever I needed to do, as it relates to going to the school conferences, parent-teacher conferences, I was always there. It was important to me that I made sure I was still there for my children. and I was there. It just seemed to fit. It just, once you establish your routine, I think it just works out. And as long as you maintain that, family is always first. They will always be first for me, and so that was just going in. That had to just be the way it was. And as long as you establish those rules from the beginning, I think you just make it fit in whatever you're doing. And it always helps to have a good partner, a husband, or someone there that can be with the children when you have to run out to go to a meeting or be somewhere. It's always helpful to have someone there to help with that. And men do that kind of stuff. They help with that.
Representative Ammons, would you like to address the same question?
Sure, I agree with what they've shared. I have a great partner. He may wash, I might fold my clothes. I just take all mine out of the basket. There you go. But my son is awesome. My children are awesome, and they are truly part of the team. And when they were all in the house at one point, we have a huge dry erase board on our board in the dining room, and so we have contexting meetings in the morning time. So the contexting meeting was, where are you going? What is your schedule? And we put everybody's on the board so that each person would have an idea what they're supposed to do in the course of their events. And that worked for years, and now I have one home who has unbelievably become just a great caretaker. He is a great caretaker. He cares for me. He helps with laundry. He takes care of pets. We have plenty of them. Most people think we got a farm in the house. We get all these pets because he wanted to be a vet. So his interests are incorporated into ours. And my husband and I just really try to meet their needs while we're meeting our needs at the same time. And we all truly work politically together. We work on laundry, we cook food, we grow food. We're a little eclectic family. That's what I would say that we are. But we get it done collectively.
And Julia, would you like to wrap up our final question?
So the question is, how do you find work-life balance? I have no idea. Yesterday, my mother and my sister and my nieces came down for a visit, and it was a lovely day, but I missed the St. Joe parade. There was a parade in St. Joe I didn't go to. Where was the balance? So if you're thinking of running for office, once you dive in there, especially in a community of this size, we're a big, small town, right? Every day you're running for office. You go to the grocery store, you're running for office. You go to a basketball game, you're running for office because there's Rob taking a picture of you sitting in your, and you better make sure you're not making a weird face because we'll post it on social media. Not to be mean or anything, but every day you are running for office when you run. And then after you're elected, every day you're still running for office. And so it's a huge commitment. And it's not just you, it's your entire family has to make that commitment. And sometimes they have to sacrifice things, and sometimes it's hard and they don't want to. But also it becomes part of the fabric of your family, of your lifestyle, and so going to parades and going to events and going to the grocery store on Sunday and knowing it's going to take 2.5 hours because you're going to run into all kinds of people, but that's one of the most beautiful things about living in a community of this size. Those are just things you have to accept. And then also at the end of the day, struggling and feeling awful because you missed something or because something didn't get done, that's also part of of your life. If you're a political candidate, if or if you're just a person. Again, a lot of this is just about being people. So if the question is, how did you find work-life balance? Again, I have no idea. I'm still working on it.
Thank you, Julia. Well, Representative Carol Ammons, State's Attorney Julia Rietz, Representative Naomi Jakobsson, and of course, future Lieutenant Governor Patricia Avery. I would like to give you all a big round of applause. Big thank you. This event would not be possible without the Champaign County Young Democrats. And I want to say a huge thank you, Adani Sanchez. This was her baby, and this is what, look at this room. We have a whole room of people excited about having her. If you have questions, thank you to Mike who did the sound today. We made us all sound audible, so thank you for that. If you'd like to get involved with any of these ladies and their campaigns, although Representative Jakobsson, you haven't ruled out running for something, I'm going to just put it out there. So if you want to get involved, or if you want to get involved with the Young Democrats, this dynamic group, please see the table in the back afterwards. Thank you all so much for coming and have a wonderful afternoon.